The Garden is an open, inclusive, Christ-like community
where people from many paths
gather to explore, engage, and seek inspiration
to transform our world
through the unconditional love of God.
Explore,
engage,
inspire.
Join us online, in person, and in the community, while featuring local artists. Grow with us online Sundays at 9:15 a.m.
We're glad you're here.
Good morning, gardeners. I'm so glad that you're here. My prayer is that you will experience the love of God in this time we have together today, virtually. That the spirit that connects us all together will fill your heart and fill mine and transform us in some ways that we can share in the transformation of the world. A couple of things I'd like to highlight as we're moving on. First of all, I want to encourage you to sign up for the I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness, a study that we're having in a few weeks. It's a limited number of people we can have in there, so get yourself signed up and then plan on attending to all the sessions. We have two great leaders in that class, Stephanie and Sherry, and all you have to do is go online, thegardenonline.org, and it will share a little more information about those two co-facilitators. In addition to that, we have the Crew Car Wash, that fundraiser that's going on right now. And you can either order those tickets online, or if you want to meet us at Beef and Boards in the parking lot on October 4th from 10 to 11, we'd love to see you there. And as long as you're there picking up those tickets, why don't you share in some Holy Communion? We're going to have drive-through Holy Communion on that day as well. Today we have two special guests. We welcome back Josh Riddick, who is a community leader who is encouraging us to really consider matters of race and matters of inequality and matters of how we can all be part of becoming a world where all people are treated with love, dignity, and respect. We also welcome back Taylor Hall. Taylor and her grandfather were here this past summer talking to us a little bit about what it was like to protest in the days of Martin Luther King and then the days protesting now. What I'm really fascinated about as far as that's concerned is, you know, that Kent marched with Martin Luther King Jr. When he was marching in Boston. And guess what? Taylor marched with Martin Luther King's son in Washington, D.C. just recently as well. Isn't it amazing how the Spirit works from generation to generation? Well, that sets you up for the service. I'm sure glad that you joined us today, and my prayer is indeed that you'll experience the love of God. Now take these next few moments to be still and to be reminded of God's ever-presence in your life. Welcome.
Please join me in these words of welcome. Shalom, salam, namaste, peace.
I'm gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good, gonna make a difference, gonna make it right. As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, to this wind is blowing my mind. I see the kids in the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their needs? A summer's disregard, a broken bottle top, and a one-man soul. They follow each other on the wind, you know, 'cause they got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. Na 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 na. I've been a victim of a selfish kind of love. It's time that I realize that there are some with no home, not a nickel too long. Could it be really me, pretending that they're not alone? A willow deeply scarred, somebody's broken heart, and a washed out in a dream. They follow the pattern of the wind, you see, 'cause they got no place to be. That's why I'm starting with me. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. Oh yeah, I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. You gotta get it right while you got the time, 'cause when you close your heart, then you close your mind. Starting with the man in the mirror. Oh yeah, that man, you change his ways. That change, no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. Na 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 na. Oh yeah, na 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 na. I'm gonna make a change. It's gonna feel real good. Come on, change. Just lift yourself. You know you got to stop it yourself. Yeah, make that change. I'm gonna make a change today. Man in the mirror. You got to not net yourself, brother. Yeah, yeah, you know. Make that change. Get that man, man in the mirror. You got to move. Come on, stand up. Yeah, stand up. Make that change. Stand up. Man in the mirror. You got to change. Make that change.
Shout out, do not hold back. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Announce to my people their rebellion, to the house of Jacob their sins. Yet day after day they seek me and delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that practiced righteousness and did not forsake the ordinance of their God. They ask me, righteous judgment, they delight near to God. Why do we fast, but you do not see? Why humble ourselves, but you do not notice? Look, you serve your own interest on your fast day and oppress all your workers. Look, you fast only to quarrel and to fight and to strike with a wicked fist. Such fasting as you do today will not make your voice heard on high. Is such the fast that I choose, a day to humble oneself? Is it to bow down the head like a bulrush and to lie in sackcloth and ashes? Will you call this a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? Is this not the fast that I choose, to loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of yoke, to let the oppressed go free and to break every yoke? It is not to share your bread, is it not to share your bread with the hungry and to bring homeless poor into the house? When you see naked, cover them, and not to hide yourself from your own kin. Then your light shall break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. Your vindicator shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall cry for help, and he will say, Here I am. If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing finger, the speaking of evil, if you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light shall rise in the darkness, and your gloom will be like noonday. The Lord will guide you continually, satisfy your needs in parched places, make your bones strong, and you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water, whose waters never fail.
So much of our lives can be ruled by fear. Anxiety, worry, and fear. Well, I'm choosing faith today. Faith that if I make a mistake out of ignorance, that a teacher will arise. Faith that if I open my heart to new perspectives, I will be more compassionate. And today, I have faith that if I feel pain from harsh words, I will heal. I have faith that if I am the person who injures, that I will know self-awareness to ask for forgiveness. Faith will release me from fear, and it will take me from worry to a life of love-filled action. This is my prayer today. Will you join me so it can be our prayer? Dear God, we choose faith that turns ignorance to education, new perspective to compassion. We choose faith that turns harm to healing, mistakes to forgiveness, and worry to love-filled action. This is our prayer. In God's name, amen.
Good morning, gardeners. It is so good to see you today. So good to be with you. I'm Josh Riddick. I've been helping facilitate a conversation with Carolyn these last few weeks. If you've been following along with our Getting Comfortable with Being Uncomfortable series, I'm in my car today. If you're wondering why that is, I have 2 kids under 2, and their screams and yells can pervade very loudly throughout the house, and instead of disrupting their space, I have fled to my vehicle. So not only do I feel like one of those people who hop on social media to complain about something in their car, it's just an interesting space, but nonetheless, I'm excited to share with you today, excited to be with you today, even virtually. So if you've been following along with our conversation of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, we've talked a lot about, the experiences of racism, how do we find hope, what does it mean as a faith community to do this work, and today I want to focus maybe a little more elementary on what exactly do we mean when we say racism? What exactly are we referring to? How does that impact us on an individual level? So I want to take some time today to do that. First, want to do a couple quick housekeeping things. If you haven't filled out our survey yet that we sent out, I would greatly appreciate it if you did. That survey is going to be used to help give us some helpful data points and clarity around where this series will go and what are the outcomes of the series. So if you could fill that survey out at your earliest convenience for us, that would be fantastic. Secondly, I would invite you to just take a moment to breathe. This series may already have created some discomfort, some areas of uncomfortability. You may feel some tension in your body, may feel some tension in your spirit. And so I would invite you to just breathe for a moment. Take a deep breath in, hold it, and release. So I don't know what this week will bring for you. I don't know what this past week brought for you. But I want to take a moment to acknowledge whatever it is that you're carrying into this moment, that we could just set it down for a minute, or take our hands off of it for a moment. So as we get started, I want to invite us to take a moment to write down or jot down, if you have a computer, maybe type it out. If you don't have any paper, pen, or a computer, just to think about this for a minute. When I say the term racism, what would you use as a definition there? How would you define that term? So let's take a few minutes to start writing something out. I want to be able to have us come to a baseline of what we mean when we say this term, how I'll be using it today, and the implications for us in our conversation with the definition we have. So just take a moment to write that down for me. Now, for some people, that term racism tends to inspire maybe a definition that focuses on or thinks about people doing explicitly racist behavior. People who are using racial slurs, using harmful language or behavior. You might think of the Charlottesville marchers from a few years ago who were marching, screaming, and chanting blood and soil" in Charlottesville, Virginia. That's what racism is. Racism is Jim Crow South, segregated communities. Racism is redlining. Racism is, and those are all correct answers. Some folks might use the term racism as prejudice plus power. Those are absolutely accurate terms, but I'm not quite sure they're robust enough. I'm not quite sure they represent the depth and breadth of how racism manifests in our culture and our society. So the definition I want to invite us into today comes from Dr. Shaniqua Walker Barnes, Black womanist theologian, counselor, just incredible leader and voice on racial equity. Her definition is white supremacy, or a system of racism, is based on the notions that white people's customs, cultures, body, aesthetics, and values are inherently superior. Again, that last part is really important, that racism is a system of white supremacy that gives the notion that white bodies, culture, values, customs, and aesthetics are inherently superior. Now, you may be hearing that, like, what does that mean? How does that play out? A very small example of what this means is when you go to the grocery store, assuming you buy your hair, your shampoo or your conditioner from the grocery store. Let's just assume you do. You're probably going to go to the shampoo section of the grocery store, go in the aisle, grab your stuff, head out. Not a big deal. But for myself and many other Black, Indigenous people of color, the experience of going into a store to buy hair care products is actually very different. That there is a shampoo aisle, absolutely, in a Walmart, Target, Meijer, yes. But there's also a separate section called ethnic hair care products. That's a space for usually Black folks to get access to hair care products. And you may not know that, it may be news to you, but it's a very small but powerful way in which I and millions of other people are reminded on a regular basis that the things that you need for your care and yourself are actually different or other. That just the shampoo, the normal shampoo as it might be considered, is for white folks. But the ethnic hair care product, the shampoo for you Black people, is somewhere else. If we want to keep with the grocery store theme, I think about how in many grocery stores there's spaces for international or ethnic foods, as if to say food that comes from the region of the world where Mexico and Central and South America is any less or more different than food from Germany. Now, when you go into these quote-unquote international food aisles, it's usually Asiatic food, usually Middle Eastern, sometimes there's African food, but usually it's a Hispanic or Latin food. But what is missing from those aisles are things like Italian food, things that are rooted in German culture and history, Irish food and French food. These are very much international flavors in foods as well, but they're treated as if they are the norm. And so when we think about how this manifests and play out, it shows up in small ways, but also deeply harmful ways as well. That it's not just an inconvenience to go have to look in separate aisles for hair care products, but the very nature and laws of our society are built around these norms. An example is that between the 1930s and 40s, all the way up to the early 1970s, the primary way in which Americans got access to their homes from a federally backed mortgage. That in previous generations, to own your own home required you to pay off the bank in 5 years or less, or build your own home. So there was either a particular level of economic privilege that you had to have, or a particular set of skills. So home ownership was not as accessible as it is in the modern world for many folks. And many people just didn't own their home. By the 1930s and 40s, the government created federally backed loans and mortgages through the FHA, and that gave access to people to have 20, 30-year mortgages. Things that you may be familiar with now came from the 1930s and 40s. And in this process, it allowed people to have access to homes in a way it never had before. And then as we had GIs coming back from World War II, from Korea and Vietnam, the government provided things like the GI Bill, which many soldiers used to fund the down payment on a home and give them access to the home. Now, it's important to name that in America, the primary way of generating wealth is through home ownership. You buy your home, you may fix it up, you then sell it for a profit, buy a new home, sell it for a profit, so on and so forth. But when we say that white supremacy is a system that elevates and centers white people, here's what we mean. That when the FHA created this system, it was explicitly baked into our laws, written into our laws, that black people were not to have access to these loans. So when black GIs who were fighting for our country in World War I and II and World War II, Korea and Vietnam returned from the fields of battle, who had sacrificed just as much, if not more, than many white soldiers returned from war, they did not get access to the GI Bill's ability to get a home loan. The home ownership was restricted and limited to white people, so much so that between the 1940s and 1972, 98% of loans that were FHA backed went to white families. 98%. It was billions and billions of dollars subsidized for white families and excluded from black and brown folks. And we think about the implications of that now when we wonder why are inner cities struggling under economic oppression? Why are certain communities, particularly black communities, unable to rise out of certain conditions? It's because there is entire systems built upon that. And those systems did not require us. It did not require us to have any particular views or perspectives or behaviors or intentions that were harmful. When we think about racism as a series of intentional behaviors to cause harm and discriminate, we miss the fact that daily we participate in systems that perpetuate oppression, and all we have to do is opt into engaging with them. All we have to do is behave in our quote-unquote norms, and that can cause the oppression of others. Now, this is where it starts to get uncomfortable, because that starts to implicate us as being complicit. It's particularly white Americans who didn't have or don't feel they have harmful views. Now, this system not only creates that separation and that segregation, but it also generates feelings of bias and distrust and fear. See, the systems of white supremacy prevent us from being able to see each other as beloved children of the divine. It prevents us from being able to see each other as creations and creatures of belovedness and beauty and wholeness. Because the world has done such a good job, the systems have done such a good job of separating white from black, black and brown, getting groups who fall in between to aspire to whiteness and push away from darker-skinned black individuals. And again, this does not require any sort of intentional behavior, but simply opting in to the system at hand. I want to give a story. In 1951, there was a Little League championship in Youngstown, Ohio. The team that won wanted to go celebrate by going to swim in the public pool, have a little picnic outside. Well, the team had a young boy by the name of Al Bright. Al Bright was just a little young man. He was the only black player on the team. After they won the championship, the parents and the players went out to go have this picnic at the public pool. Al's family couldn't make it that day, so Al was just by himself, and they went to the pool. And as his teammates, who were all white, got into their swim attire and crossed into the fence to go into the pool, the lifeguard came and said, "Whoa, we can't have him in the pool. He could stay here, but he has to stay outside of the fence. And you could bring him food, but he cannot come into the fence to get food." And so for most of that day, his teammates swam in the pool, had a picnic, and parents who tried to be kind came out and brought Al food as he sat and watched his white teammates get access to a swimming pool to celebrate a championship. He had every part of winning just as much as they did. At some point, the parents had asked, "Hey, can Al come in? Can he just swim just for a minute? Can he just have access to the pool for a little bit?" Well, the lifeguard got tired of having to tell him no, and so the lifeguard got a little raft and let him sit on the raft in his baseball attire and pushed him back and forth on the pool for a full lap, telling him the whole time, "Don't touch the water, don't touch the water, don't touch the water." Because in that time, when a black person touched the public pools, they would seek to drain the whole pool because it had been considered tainted at that point. And so we could get upset and focus on the fact there was maybe a bigoted lifeguard, and that that lifeguard should have lost their job, and that how unfair that was. And that moment absolutely scarred and traumatized Al for the rest of his life, yes. But I want to focus on for a moment the parents, the teammates of Al, who knew that this was not okay. But instead of disrupting and critiquing the system that made it that way, they participated with the access that they had, with the privilege they had. See, just because Al was on their team didn't have to stop them from getting in the water. So they chose to. And Al, who should have every right to get in that water with them, was not allowed. I think of the parents who thought maybe they were doing an act of mercy to bring Al food, but not doing anything to acknowledge the fact that he should be allowed within those fences. I think about the teammates who maybe just a few hours before were high-fiving, doing handshakes with Al as they won the city championship in Little League, but now probably had no issue swimming apart from him. And this system didn't require these people to view Al as anything less than who he was. But it behaved and created an outcome in which Al was considered subhuman, in which Al was considered inadequate, and could potentially taint the pool. Again, these parents and these players participated in a way that allowed them to continue as if Al wasn't there. And I think about the ways that we, as white individuals, as a church that's predominantly white, as individuals who make up this church, how have we all gone through systems that have allowed us to participate in things as the norm and never question who are the Als in our world that we have caused harm to? Who are the folks that we have traumatized? Who are the folks that we, as an act of mercy, said, "Hey, I'm gonna cross this fence. I'm gonna cross this barrier to come offer you mercy, but I'm not going to disrupt the system that's going to keep you over there." These are things that we have to wrestle with as individuals, and that can do a lot of deep soul searching, a lot of investigating the narratives we were told about ourselves, about our families, about what side of history were we really on. What side of history was our family lineage truly on? So what I want to invite you today, gardeners, is to process through what are the narratives I heard around race? Not just the explicit, "Well, my parents told me that God made everyone equal," but the implicit too. When schools integrated, what did your family do? When a black person moved in the neighborhood, what did your family do? When you drive through certain parts of the city, do you lock your doors? What are these unconscious behaviors that manifest? And then I want us to go and do an inventory. What are the books that we read? What's the media that we consume? What are the movies and the music? What are the things that are shaping us today? We want to look at the things that have absolutely formed us in the past, but right now, today, are those things that are speaking to racial equity? Are those voices from the margins? Are those individuals who represent an oppressed or marginalized community? Or are we only hearing from people who represent us and what we look like and what we believe? And maybe the most challenging thing today, I want us to hold the possibility, the reality, that we have been complicit in systems of oppression. That we have been complicit in racial systems of oppression. And what does it mean to recognize what those are? And then who gets to define what reconciliation of those things are as well? Who gets to define what fixing that complicity looks like? I have a conviction and a belief that if we are to see racial justice in our country, if we are to see racial justice in our community, is that we are able to recognize for white folks that their liberation is mutually connected to Black liberation. That as much as white supremacy has destroyed generations, so not just the body, but the economic outcomes, the academic outcomes, the career outcomes, the life opportunities of Black individuals in this country on a daily basis, it has also malformed and destroyed the white psyche's ability to build relationships and cultivate a capacity to love those who don't look like them. And I think there is an opportunity to experience that mutual liberation in a community of faith. And I'm wondering if the garden can become that. If the garden can become a place to wrestle with those difficult conversations. If the garden can become a place to process through those hard questions of who are we? Where did we come from? Who are our people and what narratives do we hold? And that has to first start with recognizing our complicity in systems. First start with the narratives that told us we weren't complicit, and start to process through what does it look like to unravel that story that may be so convoluted and maybe full of half-truths or things that are untrue. So I'm going to let y'all sit with that. I thank you for taking time with me today, and I look forward to our next conversation. My prayer is not one of peace, but of one of uncomfortability, one of not being settled, one of not being able to find rest until you work through some of these difficult narratives, these difficult questions. I believe just outside of that place of comfortability where these questions lie, so does the divine. So I am inviting you. I believe the divine is inviting us to work through this process together. So until we talk next time, have a blessed week.
With all this stuff going on with George Floyd and just watching him be murdered definitely made me angry, and it was a lot to deal with, a lot to process. So I watched it that night, and basically I did not sleep at all that night.
Even before that happened, being from Indianapolis, we just dealt with Josh Riddick's murder, so I was already angry and upset about that. And seeing a couple weeks later George Floyd be murdered, I was like, this is enough. It broke my heart, and it made me feel like if they can get away with this, they can get away with anything, and they think it's a joke, but this is someone's life. Writing music has really been a way that I've learned to process a lot of my feelings, basically going back for 20 years. As I was writing a song, immediately I started to cry, just kind of feeling that hate that was geared towards George Floyd, directed at me. That's a lot to deal with. I was taking all of that in, and I began to write, and it really didn't take me very long to write the song. I didn't know at first that my dad wrote the song. I just came to visit him in the studio, and I heard it, and I was like, wow, these lyrics are moving, and I was getting emotional when I first heard it, and I was like, Dad, we have to do something with the song. And so I was like, if no one else is gonna talk about this or make a song about this, then we will, and we will put it out. It's just an honor to get the opportunity to work with my daughter. And we've been in the studio before, but I've never heard her sing like this before. With her passion for what she's doing with her activism and protests, there's no better voice that could be heard on the song.
Mercy me, what's going on? Drop to my knees, God keep me strong. This world is crazy, losing my mind. Is this 2020 or 1969? Going backwards, can't get in. Every time I watch the news, another black man's dead. Speak up, we gotta call out the wrong. We won't rest until Trayvon can make it home. Who knows how much more we can take? I can't take no more. You'll see these tear stains on my face. Keep sticking to our guns, we're gonna If we get cut, we both bleed. If I was down, would you help me keep moving forward? We've come too far. Don't judge me by my skin, but love me for my heart. Who knows how much more we can take? I can't take more. You'll see these tear stains on my face. Keep sticking to our guns. We're gonna fight, not run. But don't stand for hate, stand for love. So what we gonna do now? Yeah. So what we gonna do now? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Got my face on the ground, foot on my neck, crushed in my chest while I'm telling you I can't breathe.
There's nothing happening. I need something to actually happen.
We need change.
I need something to actually happen. Violence equals violence.
Don't stand for hate, stand for love. So what we gonna do now? Yeah. So what we gonna do now? 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 I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
There's actually really 3 points that I was really trying to convey through the song. Don't stand for hate, stand for love. But another one was also wanted to paint the picture of exactly what we had just seen when it comes to Mr. Floyd and the way he was killed. We need to remember what happened to him. Then the third point that I was trying to convey to as well was, so what are we gonna do now?
My hope for this song is that people want to see actual action and change. I hope that people start supporting their local nonprofits and local activists. A group of 5 other women and myself started a nonprofit called Black Women in Charge. We're trying to make actual change in our community, and we're encouraging our youth and people of all generations to register to vote and to come out to different city council meetings. But we want to make sure that this trend and this hashtag doesn't just die off, that we see actual change.
Good morning, friends. Today I'm coming to you from the Gardener's Garden, just a few short miles away from Thief and Board's Dinner Theater. The Crooked Creek Food Pantry is here for those most in need in Pike Township. Not everyone these days has money to pay for food and go to the grocery store and shop. So an option for them is to come here to the Crooked Creek Food Pantry and get all they need for their families, including fresh produce from our very own garden. Today, we are going to be talking about faith and works. Faith is sort of an internal thing. It's what we believe and feel about God. And for me, my faith is that I believe in a God who loves me and really wants the best for me. And God also calls me, per my faith, to love our neighbors and care for our neighbors. And the way we do that is through works. So faith is how we feel on the inside, and works is how we show God's love and our love for our neighbor on the outside. And you can do that by saying kind words to your friends or family members, opening the door for a stranger, or helping out in the gardener's garden, providing food for those most in need. It's important to both have faith, which is what we believe and feel on the inside in terms of our love and our relationship with God, and works, which we show on the outside. In fact, in the Bible, in James chapter 2, and part of verse 18, it says, faith and works and faith, fit together, hand in glove. Well, I just happen to have a pair of gloves. So faith and work and faith fit together like hands in gloves. I'd say these gloves fit quite well on my hands. So that means now I'm going to get to work showing my love for my neighbor by picking vegetables from this garden and taking them over to the food pantry. Have a great day.
We've got to give a little love, have a little hope, make this world a little better. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa. Living in this crazy world, so caught up in the confusion, nothing is making sense for me and you. Maybe we can find a way. There's got to be solution. How to make a brighter day. What do? We've got to give a little love, have a little hope, make this world a little better. Try a little more, harder than before. Let's do what we can do together. Whoa, we can really make it better, yeah. Oh, la la la, only if we try. On our minds, got the troubles on our shoulders. Sometimes it seems so much what we go through. Maybe if we take the time to understand each other, you can learn to make it right. What do? We've got to give a little love, have a little hope, make this world a little better. Try a little more, harder than before. Let's do what we can do together. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We can really make it better, yeah. Oh, la la la, only if we try. Oh, la la la, oh, ah, oh, 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 la la la, only if we try.
If everybody takes somebody by the hand,
Come on and take it by the hand.
then maybe everyone could learn to love and understand.
Oh, we can really make it better, yeah. Oh, la la la, only if we try. Sing it. Oh, la la la, we can really make it better, yeah. Oh, only if we try. We've got to give a little love, have a little hope, make this world a little better. Try a little more, harder than before. Let's do what we can do together. Oh, give a little love, have a little hope, make this world a little better. Try a little more, harder than before. Let's do what we can do together. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We can really make it better, yeah. Oh, la la la, only if we try. Oh, la la la, oh, ah, oh, 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 la la la, only if we try.
Go forth in the world, my friends, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, recognizing that the love of God is enough to pull you right on through that. And now, go in peace, and may the love of our God be yours today, tomorrow, and forevermore. Amen.
Mercy me, what's going on? Drop to my knees, God keep me strong. This world is crazy, losing my mind. Is this 2020 or 1969?